So I am very surprised that despite all this fuss with Black Lives Matter, that people are not bringing up more statistics from either political side. Now, I know there are studies on this, but I was thinking that maybe if people actually saw how to get correct facts on this in a simple and fast way, they would listen. So I'm going to show you how I found accurate facts on racism concerning cop brutality. Facts which I got from government websites. Also, this is not something that you should just listen to in the background. This requires your full attention. And so if you want to be smart on this subject, I highly suggest you either stop whatever side task you may or may not be doing, or add this to your watch later playlist that YouTube provides everybody with. And just to give you about 30 seconds of background information on myself, in college I used to get paid to help people learn statistics, and I will admit that my political views tend to go toward one side, but I look at each political aspect differently and individually and ask first what God thinks, and then second what the facts have to say. And then I form my convictions and feelings accordingly. So with that being said, let's get into how I found accurate facts on racism concerning cops. I went into this deciding to specifically focus on numbers because if I was to focus on personal stories, that would fall under the anecdotal evidence fallacy, which is using a personal example to determine an entire argument. And while I don't doubt the validity of these personal stories, looking at all the numbers in its entirety is going to give the most comprehensive evidence. And in order to focus on the numbers, I focused on how many people were shot to death, since other cases of cop brutality are not always documented, and we should use the most substantial evidence. First, I went to this website to see how much each ethnicity was shot at. And then we need to make rates because obviously white people were shot at the most, but someone can of course very much argue that this is only because their ethnic population is the largest, thus they have the biggest chance of getting into trouble the most. That is why we make rates. And I used the US population stats to make the rates. I only got stats from whites and blacks. I left out other races because I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, and one could easily use those stats to manipulate toward their own agenda no matter what side you are on. And we are going to make the rates based off 2018 because it is the most recent year that has everything we need. So blacks have been shot to death by the police 209 times in 2018. And as you can see here, in 2018, their population was over 40 million. In order to get the rate at which black people in America are shot at by cops, we divide the number of times they were shot at by their population. And as we can see, they are shot at by the cops at a rate of 0.0005%. I do not think that we should round this by the thousands because it is good to see how prevalent this is within the whole context of the United States, since it is people across the United States that is making this their issue. Anyways, then we repeat this process for white people, and as we can see, they are shot at by cops at a rate of 0.0002%. Then we compare, and while this may not seem like much, one can fairly argue that blacks are shot at by cops 2.5 times more. However, you can also say that cops shoot black people 0.0003% more. Each one has a different narrative, but they are both still statistically correct. Looking at these stats alone, it does seem as though cops are slightly racist, but in order to be fair, one must consider, do blacks get themselves in the situation to be shot at more? We can answer that by looking at the murder rates because it is legal for cops to shoot if they see murder about to happen. The murder rates can be found by gathering information at this website. I will provide a link in the description to this website and the other websites I used. We will first find the murder rates for blacks. We will do that by dividing the amount of murders by the black population. The black murder rate is 0.01%. and the white murder rate is 0.002%. So if cops shoot black people more than whites, but blacks are even more likely than whites to get themselves in the situation to be shot at by their choice, then cops cannot generally be considered racist. Since cops shoot black people 2.5 times more, even though blacks are 5 times more likely to get themselves into situations, they are not overcompensating. Overall, we cannot fairly conclude that cops are racist. Are they brutal? Maybe. Are blacks more vulnerable to becoming criminals based on their unfair economic situation? I would say so. Are there racist cops out there? I would say so. There are sick people out there who are the exception, but you better believe that those exceptions are what make the mainstream media, and we shouldn't generalize the exceptions because that is when discrimination happens. And isn't that how this started in the first place? Do not reverse discriminate. Also, black on black murder is way higher than the amount of times that cops shoot black people to death. And if we defund the police, then black people will be even more of a minority because they're not getting the protection that they need. Also, if people stopped aborting black babies, maybe black people would be a less minority in that way as well, and they could delude the racial connotations and grow up to make their communities a better place. However, they cannot do that if they do not know the truth about where their efforts should truly go.